Welcome to Third Fridays, the monthly legal talk show from Lois LLC featuring attorney Christian Seeson. This is the original forum in which real attorneys discuss workers' compensation issues, share their opinions, and engage in colorful conversations. This show showcases diverse perspectives of attorneys handling workers' comp cases, including case law trends, practical litigation strategies, and hot topics. Here's your host, Christian Seeson.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the last Third Fridays podcast of the year. 2024 is almost over. If you're hearing this, then we would have just celebrated our holiday party last night. I can't believe this year has come to a close this quickly. What a 2024 it's been for our firm here at Lois. And I thought it might be great to kind of not do like a year in review, but since internally we actually shared our year in review with clients earlier this month in December, that we could kind of hit on some of those highlights and then take on some perspectives from two people that I think have a good understanding of what we do here versus like what they have seen in their prior careers, right? So my first guest, just welcome Scott Grossman. I know it's your first podcast episode. It's going to go great. Don't worry. Don't be nervous. But welcome to the show.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Christian.
And my other guest coming to us live from Florida, right? Thank God for the developments in technology. Brenna O'Brien, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here again.
Yeah, actually, talking about the holiday party, Scott, we had like, an office form go around where we're all nominating our peers for awards, right? And, I guess by the time this airs, we'll know like who got awards from this year. But as we record it here today, we don't. So I just like to make it known to you, if you didn't, that we're sitting here with the reigning rising star of last year, Brenna O'Brien.
That is no surprise to me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I wonder if that will be an award this month. But in any event, right, it's a lot of fun. Good luck to everybody that's listening. And if you're hearing this and you didn't get an award, it doesn't mean we don't love you, right? It just means that there's only so much of a limited budget that we can have for those trophies, right? So, okay. We always talk about our year in review as like the example that we put forth with our firm values. And you can be at Lois Law Firm for 10 years. You can be at Lois Law Firm for 10 seconds, and you're going to know what CAPS is, right? Because we make that such a very big part of how we do things. If we're not living by them, then we're not working. And so our CAPS values, creativity, advocacy, professionalism, and service, we think about them all the time. We literally have sessions every month where we roundtable and talk to our peers about what's going on in their cases, ideas that we can provide. And so me being someone here at Lois that it's just been so long since I don't know anything like non-Lois, right? The last time I worked for someone other than Craig Lois was 2012. I mean, Brenna, what were you doing in 2012?
Oh gosh, I was not working for a law firm, that's for sure.
So like that's so long ago. So I thought you guys would have such a nice perspective. One, Scott, you have years of experience in this industry, right?
I do.
But you came to us starting in August, and, maybe we start there. Like what was that like for you to be someone who, by all accounts was a veteran in the industry, knew what he was doing, knew the law, and said, you know what, I'm going to go to this new place where they do things a little bit differently. What was that like for you?
It was certainly nerve-wracking, but also very exciting. Just coming here, knowing what I was getting into when everything was laid out for me as to what the expectations were, not just for me, but for the firm was something that was just unbelievably exciting for me.
And, you're talking about like laid out, like, did you feel that, not to say, prior employers or anything like that, do you think that in general firms do not lay out like things like that for attorneys?
Not in my experience.
No.
My prior firm I was with for 19 years, when I first joined them, I already had experience doing liability work, and that's for the most part what I did for them for a long time before I got into the workers' compensation part of things. But even when I joined them, it was on my first day, okay, here's an appearance, come back, report on it, deposition the next day. There was no expectations laid out,
Right.
Not even billing requirements or anything like that. Things were kind of just on ad hoc. As I went along, it was, this is what we want you to do. And if I didn't meet an expectation, it wasn't that I wasn't meeting it. It's just that I didn't know what they wanted.
Okay.
So it took me a long time just to get used to what their expectations were and what their needs were and what they needed me to do.
Which I would imagine had to be a lot of trial and error, right? Like if you don't have it laid out, there's no expectation. You're kind of, trying something. And then if that doesn't work, you're trying something else and it becomes a little bit, frustrating. Okay. And then Brenna, on your side, right? You come here at the suggestion of someone that you went to college with, right? And I think even at that point, we were, I like to think that we're a different firm, at least a little bit every year, trying to make new improvements and new updates. But what was your experience like where you were working versus when, your college friend says, hey, I'm working at Lois, right? What were you looking to do or from an experience change or just a mindset? Where were you in your point in your career?
So I was with a divorce and family law firm before here, and it was kind of just, I was looking to get into something different, that type of law takes a toll. So when I had heard from, my college friend that worked here, she had told me, brief examples of, things that we do here, with designated training paralegals, system, and, this is what we have to do, blah, blah, blah. It was just even hearing from her before I even applied, it just sounded like a dream. I didn't get, a specified training at all at my old job. So just even that in itself was really cool. It felt like I was, kind of in school again, which I did enjoy. So that was great.
I think everybody,
unique for me too.
Everybody does say that to me. Like there's a little bit of like a lecture hall kind of feel in the beginning. Mm-hmm. I've heard it. Yeah. And, even from like a constructive criticism standpoint, right? Like I've heard feedback, like, cause not everybody is going to, dive in and say, I want to go back to school again. Right. And we can definitely, work with all different types of styles and learning. But I do think that the people that have a mindset that's very positive, oriented towards training and relearning, those people actually like pick it up so much faster, so much more quickly. I guess Brenna, I'm like, I introduced the prompt without like saying her name, but because you're on the podcast, she's probably going to listen to it. So she'll probably get mad at me if I don't say her name. So, Krista Karamanis, like we do love you too, right? Like I know you're on the show, but since you're probably going to listen to this episode just based on Brenna on it, I figured, let's just not cut you out from name recognition. So Brenna, then you want to change, you come in here and now you guys, when you both started working here, what was a moment, if at all, did you ever have a moment where you thought this is like harder than I thought it was? Or, this was not something I was expecting when you came here?
For me, to be honest with you, it was more not surprising. It was actually very nice that the expectations that I had and were laid out were met.
Oh, okay.
And that, I guess, in and of
like
itself
no false promises.
is surprising.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you go places or somewhere brings you in on the flip side, and they expect something of you, and you may not meet their expectations, and you may go somewhere and they may not meet your expectations. But in this case, for me, the most surprising part was those expectations were actually met, at least on my end.
Right.
I can't speak for you, Christian.
No, I think I was almost hearing that as what I think happens to a lot of people, not even just in our industry, but like the law, right? That, you know, as people move from firm to firm, there are so many promises made, right?
Exactly.
And it is immensely hard for any firm to fulfill all of those promises, right? And so I think that's something that, you know, we actually don't do. We don't make a lot of promises in terms of like results and, you know, numbers and all these things. But, you know, when we lay out that structure, we actually leave it open to the person to kind of meet that model on their own. So, what about you, Brenna? Any point in time where you were starting and you felt like, oh, like this isn't what I expected, or like this is harder, or what were your experiences like early on?
I think I came in with a little bit of an advantage because I did have experience as a paralegal. It was harder going into, you know, I feel like with any sort of thing, a new field or, you know, new type of law. So going from divorce and family law to workers' comp, that was tough. It was a lot of information at once, but I kept on being told, you know, it's going to click. It's going to click. I think that was, you know, people say that they're like, just wait. And sometimes you don't believe them, but that was, I think, the hardest part was just trying to retain all of the information that was given to me and then applying it to the day-to-day job. But other than that, you know, the training tools that we have here are so great. It was almost like easier than I had expected, I think.
Oh, that's interesting. Because I've spoken to so many people who've come from different areas of law, or maybe even, you know, for paralegals, like sometimes they're just not in law at all, right? And then they come to our firm. That is the hardest part, right? Like, you don't know anything about New York workers' compensation, which is like the niche of the niche, right? It is so specific and tailored that is the hurdle to overcome. That not so much information and time, but like the mental hurdle to just be like, I know nothing, and I have to like agree with the people that are here that I will get it, because that's pretty difficult just to think about. That to say anybody can just pick up a new language and say you're going to be speaking it fluently in a matter of months. That's pretty hard to, you know, overcome individually, right?
Sure. And let me say, for me, it was also a little different, obviously, because I came in with experience in workers' compensation for a long time. And I still had to go through the training, and I came in with an open mind. And I will say that, in my humble opinion, that I was a pretty darn good workers' compensation defense attorney before I came here.
Right.
But having done the training and having the ability to work with colleagues and bounce things off each other, particularly in CAP sessions and things of that nature, I think it's made me better.
Right.
So I was able to take being very good to becoming even better, and then having Brenna as my paralegal, which I don't know if that was mentioned before.
No, it wasn't.
Not,
yeah.
There's the information.
Let's tell everybody. Yeah, you guys work together.
We do work together, and that's just it. And we work together really well.
Right.
Because that training with the attorneys, especially, you know, or people who've been here with experience, and the paralegals coming together, and it's very unique in my opinion. I've had assistants. I have never had a paralegal like Brenna.
Well,
she makes me better.
No,
it's the truth.
True,
Thank you.
I can hear it too, that it, like, you know, it's not just like bluster, right? Like, and I have experience working with Brenna too, so I know that you're not lying. But the thing that's very funny to me is, not funny, but I guess very interesting, is like the CAPS values that we preach. They're not just external, right? And so for you to really get something out of a CAP session means that you have to put something into it, right?
Absolutely.
If you don't put anything into it, then you're not going to get anything out of it, just like anything else that's really worth anything in life. And so if you're going to invest time in someone else's case, which means you're not going to get billable credit for it, you're not going to get the glory if you come up with the idea because you're not sending the report to the client, you're just helping the handling team do that work. It's immensely important to foster that within a group of like-minded individuals. And so to come, like you said, with loads of experience, I mean, I'm telling you here right now, right? People are going to, this is probably the part where they're just going to like stop the podcast and not listen to me anymore, because I'll say right now that I think I'm the best at this of all time. Right. And that's just like, fine. There are plenty of people who are like, maybe everybody's actually going to not believe me. But the fact that I believe that means that I don't think that I could go somewhere else and actually be better. Right. But you having years of experience coming here and already in 4 months, realizing that you are better that's insane to me. It's actually pretty crazy to feel like you have like the master of a domain, you come to a spot and you feel that you are better.
That's one of the main reasons why I came here, to be honest with you, because I knew with the resources and the people here, I was going to be even better than I was. I had my own expectation to be better just because of the resources that I was going to have here was going to make me better. And it is absolutely true.
And so let's flip that then, right? So we practice CAPS values externally with our clients. We practice it internally with our peers here at the firm. To me, like I see that by living it and, going that way, it's easier to find instances when, our adversaries aren't practicing similar values, right?
Oh, yes.
Do you guys have something that maybe comes up a lot, like when you deal with your adversaries that, you wouldn't do that even if you were in their shoes on the claimant side? God forbid, please don't ever do that, right? But like, if you were to be in those shoes, do you ever see things that happen on their end where you'd be like, why did they do it that way? Like, I don't think that makes sense.
Like filing things 5 minutes before hearing is supposed to start and not being ready.
Oh, that you see that a lot.
All the time.
Yeah. What do you think is the purpose? Why do you think they do that?
I think part of it is laziness, and part of it is because they know they can get away with it a lot of times.
Interesting. I guess from the perspective of if they're not dealing with someone with experience and they just throw it in there, like that element of surprise is an advantage. And there really isn't any rule to not filing it, right? I know that virtual hearing guidelines but they state you should have everything in there 5 days prior. I can't remember if it's calendar or business, but it's, this idea that, your service to your adversary, right, and your professionalism and ethics are, not trying to hide what you have and then just show it up at the last second. But, you're right. We do see like those 200-page exhibits of labor market attachment proofs like 5 minutes before the hearing. And it's like,
perfect example,
like, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, how is it actually possible that I read 200 pages 5 minutes before the hearing?
Well, because it's there now. That's what the judge says, right? You can go through it as you're questioning the claimant. How many times have you heard that one?
Well, I guess Brenna, if you were a paralegal for a claimant's firm, I don't know how you would go around that, I guess, if your attorney is the one that's like saying, go file it, right? But like, what do you think? Is there something in your world that you deal with where you're just like, I would do it differently if I was on that side, knowing that like I practice these values over here?
I mean, I think what Scott said was a very good one. I mean, yeah, just them being last minute. I do not like being last minute for anything or being just making the deadlines for things. I like to get things done way beforehand, just in case. So I think that's huge. I think if I were, on the claimant side of things and I was paralegal for them, I would maybe even like speak up and say, should we really be doing this? so late or yada, yada, yada. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm going to do what the attorney wants to do, but I can't really think of anything else as big as that.
But I actually
sure
think
there are other things.
I actually think that maybe you wouldn't do that. So like, let me play with this example for a little bit, right? Like when you guys have a case here, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not whatever Scott says goes, right? And so having that experience, I think that you might actually find yourself in a situation, again, God forbid this never happens, right? You're at a claimant's firm and you're going to say like, hey, why did we file this now? We might actually get a better result if we filed it a week ago, just in case the judge is a bit neutral. Or what if the judge is more carrier leaning than claimant and they throw these records out, right?
Who's that judge?
Okay. Yeah. There are some good apples. But you're right. I think that, I think you would actually be that person to at least bring it up, because I think that when we talk about the way that we do things here, it almost breeds this like issue spotting for the opposition almost. But hey, just so that everyone out there, is when they're hearing this, we didn't just talk about CAPS values for an hour when we did year in review. We did talk about a lot of substantive stuff. I think maybe number one in everybody's hearts and minds were, the recent developments in, the RICO cases. It's now not just the tradesman case where, lawsuits are being filed against doctors, attorneys, litigation funding firms, runners, like all that stuff where you have ties to the mob, you have all this underground stuff, you have claimants living in at the same address. Can you imagine actually living with 20 other people that have the same work accident that you did? Like that's pretty wild. Doctors getting paid to perform surgery. So we've done some podcasts on that. We won't go into all that detail, but maybe just from you guys and hearing that and the way that the developments have shaped over this year. Do you have any thoughts that you want to put out there? Just, maybe that, makes sense from like the way that you guys do things and you're seeing these developments, happen in our very own state.
Well, for one thing, I'd have to say it's about time that
Right.
some of the judges are waking up to this, and some of the claimant attorneys hopefully will think twice before they do some of the things that they do. And that's not to say all of them. There's plenty of claimant attorneys out there that do the right thing in their own way.
Plenty. Let's not
Exactly. And I deal with them all the time. I speak to claimant attorneys probably more than I do defense attorneys, except
Sure.
for when we're bouncing things off each other in the office here. And most of them are very good people. Don't get me wrong. But there is definitely an element out there where, and unfortunately it's because the system, the way it exists, is just ripe for fraud to happen.
Right.
So with these things coming to light, I'm hoping that at the very least, the judges and hopefully the board as a whole starts to see there's some changes that need to be done here.
Yeah.
Because those 2007 reforms were barely scratching the surface.
Yeah. I think it's funny when, you imagine you're a little kid, you see the cookie jar, you know that you're not supposed to have cookies until after dinner, but you come in and you take a cookie and no one catches you.
I still do that.
Oh, okay. Well, so Scott, when you take something from the cookie jar, how hard is it for you to keep that to yourself? You're going to tell your friends that you took a cookie from the cookie jar. You're going to tell at least one person. There's no chance that stays a secret forever.
I'll tell my kids, not my wife.
Right. So hope she doesn't listen to this one. She's going to realize
She will.
who
Just ratted
who has the
myself
whole
out.
who isn't getting cookies. Yeah. But yeah, I think that it's a very, very, I don't want to use the word rigged, but it's like, it's a system that's ripe for people to be taken advantage of. And so I think that's what I took out of it is, you see all these stories, it only cements and justifies like what we're doing every day, because we're trying to combat this. We're trying to avoid waste in the system, right? We often tell clients that when a claim should be compensable or it should be accepted, we tell them like, hey, I think this is not going to hold up under the law, because we have that duty as well.
Yes.
But it does justify those, those times where the advocacy is like ratcheted up, right, to like level 10. Anything from you, Brenna, about that? Like, what did you as a paralegal think when you were seeing all these developments, in that arena, fraud and waste and all this like unethical stuff going on?
I mean, I think it's somewhat shocking. Especially attorneys, officers of the court. You wouldn't think that they would go into this profession and, sweep things under the rug or, whatever it may be. I like to hope that people want to do the right thing. And, that's why I, came into this field because, wanting to help people or, whatever. But it is shocking to me, although not at the same time because of the way, what I've seen happen, working here. So I don't know. Is it disappointing? Yeah. But I guess we're all human.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, Brenna brings up a great point too, because I think too often, especially on the claimant side, the claimants themselves, they view us as defense counsel as being against them.
Oh yeah.
And that's not
Yeah.
the case. Sometimes they need to be protected
Right.
from their own doctors. I hate to say it.
Yeah.
Right.
There's times where doctors are asking for surgeries or additional treatment or what have you, just so they can keep on bringing them in,
Right.
and getting paid lots and lots of money.
Yeah.
And there's times where sometimes they need to be told, you don't need this.
Right.
This is actually going to make you worse.
Right.
I've had cases where I have a case now where a claimant is looking for a 4th spinal surgery.
Oh man.
There's no reason for it. And we actually won that and they appealed it. And we're going to win that too. But they convince some of these claimants that
Right.
they need this treatment, and all it ends up doing is making them worse.
A lot of bad advice out there. Yeah. So, hopefully it does, stem the tide, right? I mean, turns, on the right axis point, that it gets to a point where, people are making the right decisions for themselves and they don't see that like short-term dollar sign as like the be all end all. So we did talk about that, right? It was interesting to now involve the clients in that, right? Because it was a webinar that we hosted, and all our clients had the option of attending. Another thing that we talked about a lot was artificial intelligence, and right, so learn about all the nicknames that Greg Lois has for AI companies, right?
That was funny.
So for our practice, what we were saying was that the tests that we're running with them do not make it a viable like way to do business yet, right? But it's coming, right? Like these things are going to get smarter, they're going to get better. And the questions that we ask them are purposefully challenging. We're not saying, what does Section 18 of the Workers' Compensation Law says. We're trying to ask them more, more questions that have like a rich base for them to actually go through, because you want to make sure that they can't just answer the easy questions. So, from your perspective, what do you guys think AI would do for your day-to-day if it becomes acceptable? Is there any thoughts that you have about AI, any reservations even too? What do you want to put on about AI?
I'm not a fan.
Not a fan. Okay.
I second that.
I do have my reservations. Yeah. It makes me nervous and it worries me. I feel like I'm not the type of person that wants to take advantage of all this new technology. And, some things are, better left untouched.
Right.
I don't know. I can't explain it. I think it scares me maybe.
Yeah, it's definitely a little scary.
It definitely is. And at least the way things work now, you're potentially adding a third layer of things to review.
Right.
Because obviously you're not going to just trust what the AI says, I would hope.
Right.
So chances are that if AI spits something out, Brenna's going to have to review it and then send it to me to review it.
Right.
And then it almost creates more waste at this point more than anything else.
Yeah, I guess it would have to be a test of whether that process, right, where you're reviewing AI work to send to a client or send to a court, is that going to be shorter or longer than actually doing it yourself, right?
I would argue longer right now.
Right. And so that's a very interesting point, because most people that are saying shorter, you're kind of actually worrying that they're not going to do the fact checking part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they're going to get this and end up like that person who was before the Bar Association having their license revoked because ChatGPT gave them cases that don't exist, right? Like that's still.
Yeah, that's scary.
It's happened. Yes. And I
So-
also just don't think that ChatGPT or any of the other AIs can be creative the way a person can, looking at a fact pattern and drawing things out of there.
Okay. Just in case ChatGPT is hearing us right now, I imagine.
Gosh.
You do not have permission to use my voice.
No, I think that I'd like to think that it's coming though. I like to think that there's a way to foster that kind of creativity, almost like work with the robots, right? And I'm also partially saying this because if they are hearing me, please save me as one of the good ones, guys. No, like I have those same concerns that you guys have. I just know that there is going to be a way forward, right? There's going to be a moment where we're going to have to look at it as not a perfect model. I mean, we can't expect that, but a model that's sufficient enough that works with our clients in ways that actually help them too, right? You know,
That would be great. I just don't think we're anywhere close as of right now.
Yeah. No, that's
as
fair.
Greg showed us last week. What
Yeah.
was it? 0%?
yeah, I mean, granted, put 50 humans in a room and tell them to calculate to me the Section 29 reimbursement and the go forward holiday. I don't, maybe humans might not be able to do that too. So I think that's a little bit of a tough question for an AI to answer. But the idea is that, yeah, we're not there yet, but we're making sure that, we're keeping tabs on when it could be there. So another very interesting point. But, we ended really a lot on what a new vision could be like. And, I think that we've been trying to kind of breathe it in just with the way that we talk to our people, right? Hey, make sure you use all of your PTO, like spend some time with your family and your friends. Don't be someone that just works all the time. And it's like a very, very honest interpretation of like where we need to be versus, what I think every law firm used to be or still is, which is work to work to work to work to work to work to work. And it's, when I first heard it, I was like, that's not how I became successful, right? I just outworked everyone and, got to this point. But I'm realizing now it's not possible. Like you cannot actually work that long for a period of time where you're just, not getting burnt out. So, great practice, great life. What does that mean to you guys?
Well, let me go back for a second because I'm still getting used to the use all your PTO and and take time for your friends and your family and all that. Because honestly, even when I would go on vacation in years past with my prior firm, I would be working. Particularly when hearings went virtual, I'd bring my laptop with me and I would go into the hotel room or wherever we were, and I would do my hearings. Because I didn't want to lose out on that billable time. And it was also unwritten, if you will, but expected of me.
Wow. Okay.
So to come here and the first time I was told, don't you dare do anything work-wise when you're on PTO, I was taken aback. I'll be honest with you. In a good way.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to take a while for me to actually get used to it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, hey, it's only been 4 months.
I know.
Right? So
I'm working on it. I'm working on myself.
I've even said to Scott, we've talked about this before, and I'm like, don't you even think about bringing any sort of anything that ties you to this place on vacation, because I'm just so big on, we work because we love it. We work because, we got to pay the bills, whatever the reason may be. Like, you're entitled to your time off, and I don't think that anybody should be working during their time off. I'm very, very big on that. I had a good work-life balance before here. I think it's even better now. If I have to work late, because I want to get something done or whatever, I will do so. I just think, time off, work-life balance is so huge. And I think I've even said made comments to you, Christian, in the past. There's more to life that just revolves around work, because you do get burnt out.
You've said this to me about my work-life balance, if there even was one at some point.
Right.
And I always used to rationalize this for really anything that you can think of. The most of it was, though, honestly, like, people take time off and they do the things that make them happy in their personal life. And I would say to them, well, this makes me happy, right? Like I would actually say that to you, Brenna, that if I was working on the weekends, it's not because like I miss deadlines or I need to get ahead or all this stuff. I just like, I enjoy this in a way that other people don't. But even then, right? Like, I think that I've had to force myself in a way to just shield off of that. Even as much as I love it, like there was a time where I made a promise and I said, you know what, I'm not even going to take my laptop, even though I could use my laptop for like personal reasons on a trip. I'm just not even going to take it. And then that entire trip was kind of like, I don't want to say it's awful, but I was thinking about the laptop because I just wanted it to be there.
I've been there.
Right. But I got through that trip without the laptop. And now it does make me feel like I can just do that all the time. It's almost like, when you're a kid and like you think that something you're going to do is really scary, like, I don't know, go skiing or go on a roller coaster, and you think it's like so scary, but you do it once and you're just like, this is not that bad. Right.
Right.
And it has way more long-term far-reaching effects for us as people. Because that's the second part of the vision, right? You can do so well here within your practice, right? But if you're not letting that let you lead a great life, then that means your life is going to filter back into the practice, right? And then you're not going to be able to establish that balance.
Sure. And I have to say, in a way, maybe it brings things full circle from what we were talking about in the beginning. But when I was taking my laptop with me on vacations and doing hearings and some reports and so forth, a lot of that was because I didn't have the resources and the people behind me
True.
that I have here, where I can now trust that if I do have PTO, which I do this coming Friday, actually, I'm taking my son to Lake Placid for a hockey tournament, and I have a hearing and I know it's covered and I know it's going to be covered well.
Right.
And I don't have to worry about that here. So again, the resources is part of what allows me to do that. And again, makes me handle my cases better.
Right. We've come a long way since 2015 when, yours truly was trying to fix the copy machine. Now we don't want me anywhere near the copy machine. Right. But that's like, essentially how you get to a place that fulfills that. Right. I think that, you have to see those hurdles to leap over them. And, I'm excited for 2025. We've done a lot of work with reorganization, with, giving attorneys and paralegals like smaller dockets, hiring more aggressively, as the attorney training coordinator, seeing that on the slide that, for every 40 people that are coming in, like we're hiring one.
Right.
And it's like, what? We're turning down 39 out of every 40 people. I think that's reassuring that, the talent that's coming in the door is not just like, okay, we're just going to use you because we need the work. We're taking an honest approach to making sure that they fit with our values.
Absolutely. And I can say with someone who came in with a lot of experience, if you're considering coming here and you're not sure and you haven't put your resume in, do it. I'm serious, because the training, don't look at it as, I already know what I'm doing. I'm telling you, I know it's hard, but come in with an open mind the way I did, and you will fit in here in a way that that was going to be better than you expected.
Yeah. I mean, I think also too, not just like an open mind, but if you know everything about the workers' compensation law, you don't know how to work with a lowest paralegal, right? You could be a paralegal at a different comp firm you need to know then like what a Lois attorney does,
Yes.
right? So it's like sometimes even it's not just learning the law, but it's learning like the structure that's laid out for you to be successful, right? Because, you know, I don't think that anybody that comes to the doors is thinking like, I'm just going to do it my way, right? And succeed. And that's just, we're all working towards the same goal. And I think this year has been a great way to kind of take what's going on in our industry and let it shape like what we're going to be in 2025. But, oh man, 2025, I mean, we're talking about a rebrand in September of next year. Like, what? I'm excited for that. But there's so much more to come. I want to thank you guys for being on the show. Thank you for giving us your insight, your experiences. I want to wish you guys a good holiday season, right? And good luck to everybody out there in Lois Land at the holiday party for awards and potential new partners at the firm, which may be announced. Good luck to everybody out in podcast land. For Scott Grossman and Brenna O'Brien, this is Christian Cison reminding you to defend from day one.